I'm McKane-Sanchez, and this is CB8 Speaks, a monthly program about issues facing Community Board 8 in Manhattan. Community Board 8 in Manhattan is defined by Roosevelt Island and the Upper East Side, and the boundaries of the Upper East Side being from 59th to 96th, from the East River to Fifth Avenue. We're filming today's program outside one of the buildings due to the pandemic because we want to be extra careful. So it's a little breezy, but it's very invigorating. And today's program is an interview with Shari Weiner, who's been nominated to be chair of Community Board. Shari, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Let's get started a little bit about your background. How long have you been a member of Community Board 8, and what committees have you served on?
Well, let me go even back a little further than that. I was born and raised in New York, and then moved to New Jersey to raise my children and came back. So I really was not familiar with what was a community board, but one day I was at one of the street fairs, and there was a community board table. We always put tables up in street fairs, and I was told about what a community board was, and I said, wow, that is a group that I really want to get involved with. So I subsequently met Jim Clynes, who was the previous chair, and he appointed me to the Zoning and Development Committee because I'm a land use attorney. I served 1 year as a public member, and then I've been appointed 2 times as a regular member of the Community Board. I was on the Charter Change Committee, and now I am co-chair of the Voting Reform Task Force.
Now, what other organizations have you done volunteer work for currently or in the past?
Well, I'm involved with the New York Landmarks Conservancy and Friends of the Upper East Side because I'm so concerned about preserving our beautiful neighborhoods and buildings. I've also been president of the League of Women Voters, Women's Political Caucus, so I've always kind of moved in those directions of political involvement, especially getting more women involved in politics.
How would you describe your leadership style?
Well, my leadership style has evolved from being an attorney with very good interpersonal skills. And then I was mayor of Livingston, New Jersey, a town of 28,000 people. I supervised a budget of $8 million. I supervised our police chief, all the administrative people. And through that, I developed a leadership style where I used my skills as a manager and as administrator, being able, especially in a municipality, to listen to all the diverse views on issues, and then, but also being able to know how to effectively run a meeting. That's one of our issues we've been having on Zoom, is that our meetings go on and on. I think I have the skills to know how to get the different points of views out, but also to make sure that one person doesn't monopolize a topic. I'm very open to suggestions from people and work with people, and that would be the kind of leadership skill. Efficient control. I use Robert's Rules of Order to run my meetings. In fact, any group that I belong, I have to be careful what group I belong, because I always eventually get elected to be president because people do acknowledge my leadership abilities.
Let's talk a little bit more about the Community Board, and what do you think are the most important issues facing Community District 8 in the next year?
Well, there are so many issues affecting not only Community Board 8, but the city and the borough. But I think because of the unique role that the community boards have in the land use process, because we are the initial body that reviews land use applications, I would put that on the top of my list. I think, especially the Upper East Side, is being overdeveloped. I think there should be development, but it should be meeting appropriate for the Upper East Side. And so when people come before, they first come to the zoning and development, we have to ask those hard questions and see, does this really meet the needs of the community, or is it yet just another high-rise luxury building? Because keeping with that, affordable housing. We need to ensure that there's affordable housing in Community Board 8. What happens now is that these developers don't want those apartments in their buildings and they sell them off. So homelessness and affordable housing is an issue. Another pet issue that I would love to get us involved with is the onslaught of scaffolding. All these neighborhoods are just covered in scaffolding. It's a blight on our city. And with this new technology of drones, why can't developers use drones to do at least their initial inspections, and then if they need to have work done, put the scaffolding up? But the scaffolding is dangerous and it's up for years. Another issue that I think we need to address is childcare, especially with so many people out of work and schools. There are just so many issues, and that's one of the things about the community board, is that we have committees dealing with that. Oh, and how could I forget voting? You know, with the fiasco that went on, I have my vote early, but at Wagner, where I voted, there was a 5-hour wait. And the voting law that was just passed in Albany says if voters have to wait more than 30 minutes, the Board of Elections has to address that. So I would be working with my committees to address, as we go through them.
Well, you brought up homelessness, which is obviously a very big issue for the whole city and for us. But how do you feel the homeless population in our community board is being treated?
Well, I did a little research, and the statistics show that there are 13,000 homeless families in New York. I couldn't find it for the city. 19,000 children who were homeless. The city this is the city's responsibility, and they have changed the way they deal with homelessness. There is a Department of Homeless Services, but it's not like you can call them up like you used to. Now, if you see somebody who is obviously homeless and in need, you can only call 311 and report it. On the Upper East Side, we do have a women's shelter at the Armory, and the Coalition for Neighborhoods has a shelter on East 81st Street, which treats 65 individuals. I think one of the problems why we don't have facilities in this neighborhood is because the rents are too high. Nonprofits cannot come in and open up a facility. Certainly the churches help out with drop-in centers, but yes, it is a tremendous need that needs to be addressed. And I'm particularly concerned about what we're doing with these children who are in the homeless shelter. Mayor de Blasio had said that he was going to put in Wi-Fi. I mean, the kids get the computers, not all, but many have gotten them. But then in the homeless shelter, there's no Wi-Fi, and cost has been cited as an issue. But why not these companies that put all these Wi-Fi sites around the neighborhood? Why not have them put in Wi-Fi at the various homeless shelters around the city? And we're going to have a lost generation of kids due to the fact that they don't have the computers. So many things are so interrelated, but to answer your basic question, no, we are not addressing the homeless population in community board. One of our committees deals with it specifically, our social needs committee, but this is a citywide issue that needs to be addressed further.
How do the current committees cover the needs of the community? And would you remove, change, or alter the committees or add committees?
We have 19 committees and 3 task forces. The total membership of the community board is 50. So when you figure out each member has to be part of 2 committees, we're spread very thin. The first thing I would do as chair is sit down with each of the chair or co-chair people and see, is their charge appropriate, or should they be combined with another committee? In consultation, which is the way I lead, is to sit down with the committees and say, all right, do you think you should be combined with another committee or not, and then evaluate.
Now, how would you reach out to the community at large to make them more aware of Community Board 8 and its work?
That's another one of my priorities, is to get the community more involved. There is such a wealth of knowledge in our community, such a resource. Yes, our chairs and our committees are very well versed in their topics, but if something comes up that they need advice on, why not reach out to the community? That these people are there. I'm sure they would be willing to serve as a resource, and then we would have the benefit and involve the community. We used to do a lot of postings, putting paper on poles to tell people about meetings. That seems like an old-fashioned way. What we need to do is get more people to get on our email blast so they know what's going on. We thought, when is a topic that's of interest to people, they come out. We saw that with Lenox Hill Hospital. The community was opposed, particularly to the residential tower that they wanted to put on Park Avenue, and the community came out and Northwell backed down. Because it wasn't a question of improving the hospital, this was just a funding mechanism for Northwell to pay for it, and we brought that to the attention of the community, and they came out. I think if the community was more aware of the things that the community board does, we would get more involvement. If you have an issue, there's a place on our website. You can contact the community board, and the community board will, Bill, our manager, will reach out to the appropriate. I don't think people are aware of that. I know when there was a parking issue on my street, never even thought to call the community board about it. I called my elected official, but the community board is there to serve the community. And I think we have to get that message out loud and clear.
Now, what about the demographics of this district in terms of age, income, education, nationality, ethnicity, or other social groups? Does the community board currently have good representation of various groups?
Well, of course, the appointments to the community board are not made by the community board. They're made by Borough President Gail Brewer on the recommendation of the council members, Keith Powers and Ben Kalos. I think the best way to get to know what the community board is to become a public member. So I think we have to make people aware that they can serve as a public member. I think the community board does represent in the community in the sense that there are definitely different ethnic groups, different ages, but I think the more diversity that we have on the community board, the more are we representative of our community, and it just serves everyone. But I think there are people who are probably intimidated about even being involved, but people who come to the meetings certainly see how the process works, and we should encourage people to become public members and then to go forth and apply to be a regular member.
Let's now talk about the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, since it began, how have you interacted with the community? Did you reach out and offer to volunteer with any groups, any agencies or organizations?
Through my position as co-chair of the Voting Reform Task Force of Community Board 8, my main involvement with COVID was dealing with voting. I just did a public service announcement on how to fill out your absentee ballot. We had 2 meetings, 2 programs that we put out on how to vote, because it was important that people felt comfortable about voting, because certainly we needed their vote. So that was my very important involvement. There's 3 ways to vote: absentee ballot, early voting, or early on November 3rd. And by the numbers we've seen, people have really wanted to use absentee ballots. So I thought that was a very important role for me to take, showing people how to fill out that ballot, since it was so confusing the last time. And in fact, if anybody still needs to know how to fill out their absentee ballot, it's on the Community 8 website, which has a wealth of information that you should check out. But my PSA, my first time doing a PSA on how to vote, fill out your absentee ballot, is up there if you have any questions.
Now, many people agree that the COVID-19 is not going to be going away anytime soon. And even if there are vaccines available, not everyone will be getting one immediately. And actually, some people may not even want to get them. And also, we're hearing that maybe these vaccines might not be lifetime. So consequently, the COVID-19 might be part of our lives for a very, very long time. How can Community Board 8 help our businesses, residents, and students now and emerge stronger in the future?
I think this is the new norm. I think anybody who thinks there will be any change in how we live within the next few months is not being realistic. I think these masks are going to be part of our belief. I was walking around the Upper East Side yesterday, and I was so appalled by how many businesses have gone out, and not even just the mom and pops, which are a major concern, but national chains that are pulling out. Madison Avenue is just full of empty stores. So the community board has a small business committee that works very closely with the retailers. I know we have been making efforts to promote businesses in the area to get people to go in. And I think that's a major role that we need to do. I think we also need to work with the schools and make sure that children are being appropriately schooled. I participated in we have a budget committee that gives recommendations to the city on for the next coming budget, and schools was a priority. Child care, I mean, there are just so many issues that are impacted that I think if your mindset is this is going to be how we're going to live, I think it gives you the ability to say, well, it's going to be more than a week or two, we really better think about it. So certainly help to the retail stores. I think the moratorium on evictions should be in place. Mean that landlords and their tenants should be working together. I think we need to work on childcare since the kids aren't in schools, so the parents can go to work. Transportation, we're concerned about the MTA, and all of these topics are covered by committees of the community board. So we're going to have a very busy year ahead of us making recommendations. Now, we are an advisory body, but I think there are ways that we can be more effective. When I was on the charter change task force, Alida organized a meeting, our current chair, organized a meeting with all the community boards in Manhattan, the 12 that in Manhattan, and we had a joint public forum, and anybody who does advocacy work knows that there are strength in numbers. So I would like to see the community boards in Manhattan work together to address issues that are for the whole borough. So I think that's going to be a very important way. And another thing, I mean, doing a lot of, in preparation for your program, doing a lot of thinking about some of these topics. When our committees pass a resolution advocating for a position, it's then passed by the full board. And then we send the resolution or a letter to whomever. That's not the way to get things done. You have to go out and follow up. I have my own government relations firm, and that's how you do things. Like, for example, we just heard about the situation in Roosevelt Island that their last bank closed. So we have a Roosevelt Island committee, and we talked about what to do, and we came up with some language for a letter that we should send. I, on the other hand, contacted Assemblywoman Rebecca Seawright, who represents Roosevelt Island, to point it out to her. She sits, it's a state issue, so she sits on the banking committee up in Albany. So that's the kind of thing that we need to do to get things done. Writing letters are good, but they have to be followed up. And those are the kind of things I think that I would certainly be pushing the community board to do.
Thank you very much for your time. It's been a great conversation. And everyone, please, as we've mentioned during the program, please visit the website cb8m.com so you can see the listing of committees and the times and dates that they will be meeting in the month. So thank you and have a great night.
It is a little chilly out here. Yeah.
This was good. No, your questions were good.